Hello everybody, it's April in Florida, April 10th, I believe, 2024, and I'm about to work on a car. I have a Lexus CT200 and I believe it's got a problem with a inverter pump. I actually have the turned on. It decides whether it's going to run the gasoline engine or pause and just use the EV. But right now, I get codes, lights on the dash that say there's a problem with the EV system. And from what I've seen on YouTube, they say the coolant should be flowing and moving inside this bottle. Right now, it is a little vibration from the engine shaking. But the coolant, from what I can tell, is not flowing, which means it would be an inverter pump that cools the electric motor. So I've gone ahead and pulled out the pins to remove these covers. They're push pins. You gotta pop the center before you can pull the rest of the pin out. So take this cowling off. And down in there is where this unit resides. It's not too big. I've seen a lot of videos on changing the Prius inverter cooler pump. I'm sure they're very similar, but there's enough differences between the Lexus and the Prius that I didn't see anybody do a video on the Lexus CT200 inverter pump, and I can see it looks a little different. So I thought, well, maybe I'll be the first. So that's where we're at. Let's see about getting this inverter pump out and swapped out with a new one. If you're wondering about what codes I'm talking about, it's the triangle and the check the hybrid system. I have been able to reset it by unplugging a wire in the fuse box and then waiting and plugging it back in, and that light will go out, but inevitably it does come back on. So I can't have that, especially if you're just trying to hide a problem just by resetting it. So that's what's up from the vision of the drivers on the dashboard. So let me go ahead and just throw it in reverse and see what happens. Reverse camera comes on. I'll put it back in park. It's the thing with these things. Am I in park? No, it says drive over there. So, oh, that's a button. I'm still getting acquainted with this car. Bought it just a few weeks ago and haven't been very anxious to drive it a lot, even though we did take it on a road trip, which was about an hour and a half away and an hour and a half back. And actually that's when I first, let me put the park on, and that's when it first the light came on, and I went into panic mode and started looking at YouTube while my wife was inside taking care of business with some people, and that's when I found out about resetting it. So got us back home, and I think it's only been out one time since then on a short trip. I think if I just put it in EV mode, will that stop the gas engine? I have to put my foot on the brake. Maybe it doesn't want to, I don't know. It's still new to me. It's a really nice car, other than that code. So I'd really like to get it repaired and ready to rock and roll. I usually don't use that word to describe my vehicles, but I'd have to say this one is kind of cute. It does have some kind of roof damage going on. Almost looks like it got hit by a large stone, a rock at one time. There's a little wrinkle right here. And when you open the sunroof, it actually will go bump, but it still functions when it comes to that dented area. So if I get the pump straightened out, maybe I'll have that dent pulled up some so it doesn't go bump anymore. That has got the headlights are yellowish, but you know, if I get the codes out, I'll work on the yellowish headlights and the bump in the roof. But it does purr. So let me go get some tools and I shall be back. Now I've decided before I really go for it and go deep, let me check the fuses. So got the handbook out, and from what I understand, it says owner's manual here, fuse location. I came up with 14 5-amp inverter and converter. So I said, let me check that fuse, because it doesn't say inverter pump, but I said, well, let me check just to make sure that I haven't overlooked something simple. So went to the book and it showed me the location. I said that this was 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 as a 10 amp. Here, fuse 14 says it's a 5 amp. So I double checked. 10 was correct, 11 was correct, 12 was correct, 15 was correct, and so on. Seemed to match with the book, except for the 10 amp that should have been a 5 amp. So does that speak something about the problem? Were they blowing a fuse? Or they thought a fuse was the repair rather than replacing the pump, and they put a 10 amp in instead of a 5 amp? So I'm thinking that's probably pointing to the root cause is, again, a bad inverter pump. So looking at this job, I say it's down in there. I think I'd rather change all 4 brakes and rotors and calipers than have to deal with this thing. But you got to do what you got to do. It's down in there. So let's get to it. Well, let's go put the manual away. This fuse cover. There's no spot. If this works after changing the inverter pump, I will go back to a 5 amp fuse in there. But for right now, I don't see the harm just for the initial test run once it's replaced. So, but the owner's manual in the car where my greasy hands won't be handling it. Now we do have some kind of bracket right here. Looks like the first obstacle, and it looks a bit like a typical engine bracket, except that it's kind of lightweight and there's no rubber grommet between here to isolate engine vibration from the frame, but it's definitely supporting it to some degree. So I think I've seen on them doing on the Priuses, they put a block of wood in here to try and keep it from tilting that much forward and decreasing your hand space, working space. So let me go get a couple wood shims and then I'll be taking this bracket off. All right, I have my block of wood in there and an actual shim. This is a shim that are kind of popular down here in Florida. I got a couple of them. They're used for leveling sheds and mobile homes when you sit them on concrete pillars. So I got a wedgie in there. Let me get the ratchet out. All right. It's right here behind the camera. All right. Oh no. I got a 1/2-inch drive ratchet sitting here with 3/8 drive sockets. And I got 3/8 drive ratchet. So I've got some 1/4-inch drive sockets. So the only thing missing right now is the 1/4-inch drive. The 1/2-inch isn't going to help me with these sockets right now. Well, let's get started with the 3/8 drive. Ten millimeter, baby. 10 millimeter. Okay. Okay, I've cracked them all loose, and I haven't seen any movement, probably because I got the wedgies in there. Now, I saw one fella on the YouTube working on a Prius, swapping out his inverter pump. And one of the things that he opted for, and I might end up doing that yet, bracket, is to take the headlight out to get a little more space in there to do the reach around. And well, let's see what's next. What's next? That was easy. Taking those bolts off, that was easy. Try my hand for size down there. Oh, that's horrible. Horrible. Need somebody with small hands. Now there's one bolt on top of the pump would be an easy shot with an extension. But 2 bolts would be easy with an extension. But even after that, you still have to bring the pump up through there. So what to do, what to do? I am thinking headlight's going to come out. So let's go ahead and remove this one that's obviously a headlight bolt. And see if the headlight starts to give it up. Right now, it doesn't feel like anything's been removed from the headlight. There is a trim push pin. It goes into the top of the headlight. To get those push pins started, you got to get something very small, like a knife, nail file, and try and get that center of the push pin to pop up. There it goes. Creak, creak, crack, crack. Okay, come on. There we go. Push pin out. I mean, I guess at the same time, you could do a headlight replacement video as you're doing an inverter pump video. No give, no sway yet. After looking it over again, I'm starting to think that this radiator support is going to have to come out. And bolt there, and then whatever else is bolted onto it. That I could see giving you enough room to get down in there. All right, let me investigate that. I'm doing this video to try and help people out that have searched YouTube and haven't seen the Lexus CT200 inverter pump replacement. Probably seen a lot of the Prius ones, but I said I've been taking a bolt out of here, and there's one down here on this corner. You can see this bracket is definitely starting to free up. So I took the one on the top there. There's another one down in the lower corner there. Got to make sure you don't drop them down into the abyss. So I believe once those are out, I took off some right here, and I may yet have to take off here and here in order to get this core support bracket out. You can see everything's got the jiggles. All right, there was one bolt I took out off here, and then I threaded it back in place just to keep it in its proper place. All right, back to wrenching. Now I've gone ahead and stuffed a rag and hit this area, so when this bolt falls out, it doesn't go into the abyss. And I've got my magnet on a stick ready to pick it off the rag. That's that plan of attack, and I will repeat that on that side as well. There is definitely no room for a ratchet in there, so I've been wrenching it with a long 10 millimeter. Now you can see how loose this bracket has really become since I took the top one and the one on the face out on both corners. So right now, holding it appears to be bolts for the hood latch. There's a horn bolt there, but I think it should float with these horns still attached. Hopefully I don't have to remove the whole bracket from the compartment, but can rather just roll it back some. So next I'm going to remove the brackets that hold the hood latch. I have removed the last two bolts holding the hood latch. You can see how much room that's going to give me. But I did drop one. But magnet on a stick to the rescue. There it is. All right, well, something is accomplished here. I like to believe I'm going in the right direction. I did free this cross member up, and I can actually, for the first time, actually touch the inverter pump. I've been looking at pictures of a replacement inverter pump, and it looks like it may be just the 2 bolts. I'm hoping there's not 3. So I dive into it further. Oh, don't tell me. Does this mean I'm upside down? Yeah. Well, You still get the picture. Sorry about that. Upside down. Okay, so the only thing that's actually holding the bracket from lifting out of the engine compartment, I know I mentioned maybe just letting it float there, but at this point, I think it's going to be easier just to take it completely out. And the only thing that seems to be holding it in place are the plug-in wires to the horn. And they're kind of awkward. They do have push buttons, but it's probably just as easy to pop the bolts off that's holding them in place rather than wrestle with that wire, which is upside down, and possibly pulling the wire out, breaking the clip, or when it finally does pop, slamming the back of my hand up against something sharp. So I'm just going to go ahead and undo the bolts that are holding the horns in place. Okay, I've gone ahead and removed the bolts holding the horns, and I put them back in place just for safekeeping, and voila, the bracket core support is out, giving me more room. Even the radiator can come forward if you need that inch or two. Well, so I'm thinking maybe it's time to attack the bolts on the actual inverter pump itself. See if I can get you inverter bolts. You're down there, I know you are. All right, well, they're deep, so I'm gonna need long extensions or multiple extensions. This reminds me of my younger days when you needed to get extended a far distance. Back in Pittsburgh, I have one extension that would cover this distance, but here in Florida, I have to make do with this multiple extensions. There is a 10 millimeter on the end, and I've already pre-checked it. It will sit on there, so let's go in and crank them out. Now I've cracked it loose and spun it all the way back, so it's definitely ready to come up out of there, the bolt that's holding the pump in place. But I suspect that when I go to pull it up, it's not going to come with the socket and the tool. It's a little late now, but could have probably stuffed a little piece of paper in there and maybe would have made a snugger fit on that bolt than it would have come up with there. But I have laying a towel underneath the car, and it looks like if it does drop, it very well could fall completely to the ground. So I've got a towel on the ground. Hopefully if it does drop, it'll land on that towel and I'll just be able to pull the towel forward with the bolt on it. Well, it worked out even better. The bolt stayed in place, and then I just used a magnet on a stick. But there is a sleeve, and fortunately the sleeve did come up with it rather than drop. So onto the other side. No mistaking where this bolt goes. Well, they're messing with me now. The second bolt in question is actually probably have to be accessed from the bottom because it's coming up the other direction. Trying to focus on some stuff. Oh, that's the one that just came out. Is that what that is? No, that's the top of the core support. It's hard to focus in between items. All right, well, the other bolt is a bolt that has to come out from down below. Ouch. Let me take that one out. Like I was explaining, one bolt for that inverter pump came out from above in the engine compartment. The other one I had to actually access below through this oval shaped hole. I was able to get an eye on it and put my extension on it, and it definitely freed it up. So Then I heard the clack of the bolt falling, but we shall see what we shall see when we see it. The inverter pump has definitely been set free from its moorings. See, it is loose, so it definitely was only held on with 2 bolts. Now it's held on with hoses and whatever bracketry it's resting on. Not enjoying this, but I'm going to press on. Now I've gone ahead and pinched off the lower hose. There's 2 hoses in. I've pinched off the lower hose on this bottle. There's an upper and a lower, using a pair of needle-nosed vice grips, so as to prevent the cooling from completely draining out as that hose goes around and goes in on top of the inverter pump. So next I will attempt to remove the hose from the top of the inverter pump. Well, this job is getting really ugly. I said there was 2 bolts holding that inverter pump. There's 3. Even though it's flopping around, it has a 3rd ear. I think the bolt just passes through the ear for whatever reason. It's not even, it doesn't seem to anchor it. It just like passes through it. And it is in a ridiculous spot. Looking down and looking up underneath, even if I remove some of the cowling from down below, I probably still need a swivel socket and lots of extension. And I've tried to reach around. I can barely touch it. I thought, well, let me attempt it with this 1/4-inch drive 10mm. Let's just say I'm being overly optimistic by doing that, but let me go for it. I've decided to get some cribbing and drive it up on top of that, some maybe 2x6s, because I need some more space under this front end. I would have loved to have been on a rack, but I've got a set of ramps, but they're with this low profile front end. These ramps are probably from designed back in the 1970s. They work good on my pickup truck, but there's no way they're going to work on the front end of this car. They would probably work under the back end if I had to back up onto them for some reason, but you can't get them under the front end. So let me get the cribbing and pull up on that, and we'll see where we stand, literally. Well, I've gone ahead and removed the plastic cowling. It was a mixture of bolts and screws, and it doesn't look like it's giving me a whole lot more access. What I'm after is that 3rd bolt holding this pump in place, which comes up from the bottom. So back to the drawing board. Like I say, it's hard to do the reach around, and coming up with a socket, it looks like it's off at an angle, so I would need probably a swivel socket to even begin to attack that. I might have to go out and buy one of those. Well, after using a combination of 3-inch drive extensions, an adapter down to 1/4-inch, and a 1/4-inch swivel, and a 1/4-inch 10mm socket, I have the pump loose. Now it's just held on by the electric plug and some wires, onward and upward. Well, I've gone ahead and pulled this hose off of that pipe down there. Gives me a little more room, swing it up here to gain access to the hose clamp down there on the pump. You just slide this green clip back and it pulls off after that. As I was trying to pull this clip off, or this hose clamp, ay caramba. Okay, as I was trying to pull this hose clamp off, I noticed that there is a white mark on the hose that lines up. You can actually see there's a little pressure on the edge of that hose, and it pressed up against the little embossment there. So make sure your hose goes back on the same way so it's not twisted when you finally get the pump mounted. I'm pretty sure there's an index marking on the hose coming out of the top of the pump. You have two hoses on this inverter pump and one electric plug. Now, counting the 3 bolts, it's been a journey. I'm getting closer. All right then. Well, the pump is finally out. The inverter coolant pump. It took a little wiggling and jiggling. I had to dangle the angle to get it up out of this opening. It might have been easier if another splash shield or cowling was taken off the bottom, but that one only would have been easier if the thing was up on a rack. But I did get it out. I had to go and buy a pair of needle nose vice grips in order to clamp on the lower hose. It's the only thing I could get to fit in there, and because I can only use one hand, I clamped that on the clamp, was able to walk the clamp back, bring that out, and then I was able to work the hoses off of the pump. And then, like I said, I dangled the angle and I got the pump out. So for now, this is, oh, and I found the dropped bolt. It's laying in the grass up under the middle of the car, so that's a little plus. Found the drop bolt, and at this point I went ahead and I was shopping. I went on a trip to buy the vice grips, and I stopped at some auto parts places, and the one place couldn't even find what I was talking about, and the other place found it, and they quoted me from like $199 to like $250. And then I went further down the highway. I was also looking for a cardboard box to pack an item I need to ship, so I pulled into Napa, said maybe I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And by that time I had part numbers from the place that did find it, and Napa looked it up and they told me it was going to be like over $500. I said, I'm about ready to pass out from sticker shock here. So I just said, I went back, came home, and went back to eBay, and I ordered it for like $45. And it should be here within a week. So I'm going to end this video and call it part 1. It may be enough to get a lot of you guys over the hump if you're doing a CT200 inversion pump. Like I said, I could not find any videos of anybody else doing this particular one. I'd seen them doing on the Prius, and the guy on the Prius, he was able to do a few bolts and whip the thing up to here and then disconnect the hoses, and so it didn't work for me in that way. So we must have some different body. I know they're going to be a lot alike, but they were enough different that it didn't pop out like the Prius. So you can see the bracket down there. There's one of the holes in the, that's the one where the bolt comes in from the top and threads in. And you can still see my 1/4-inch drive. Come on, focus please. There it is. My 1/4-inch 10mm on a swivel on a adapter to 3/8 extension that I used to get the one that was in the far corner. So I'm calling this part 1. I'll do a part 2 on the installation, but you pretty much know it's the reverse of everything I did to get it out. So I hope this helps a couple of you people out there. It's not a job for the faint of heart. If you're good at changing brake pads, it doesn't mean you'll be good at doing this. I worked in transmission shop for 5 years, and I've worked in other garages for a year here and there. So if you're just the occasional weekend mechanic, I'm not sure you really want to tackle this. But best of luck and Godspeed, whatever you decide. Thanks for watching.